You're back at the Sacred Birth Circle, and today's guest, Immi Walker, is well known on social media for her vulnerability of sharing her story, both of her loss due to shoulder dystocia and her rainbow baby pregnancy and birth. She's using her platform to help raise awareness and empower other families, as well as offer support. So please share this episode. Welcome to the Sacred Birth Circle. My name is Anna Vick. Thank you for joining us here today. It is bright and early for me and quite late for my guests. We are on opposite sides of the world, and I'm so thankful to have her here with us today to share her story and a little bit about her pregnancy journeys, which have been quite difficult, quite different, and diverse as well. And so let my guests introduce herself. Go ahead, Immi.
Hi, my name's Immi Walker. I am a mum to two very sweet baby boys. One is sadly up in heaven, and his name is Asher J. Walker, and he passed away after shoulder dystocia birth, which happened in 2020. And my second sweet boy is my rainbow baby. His name's Miller, and he was born last year in December on the first day of summer. And both journeys were very different, but yeah, I'm so glad to have brought one home safe and sound.
Oh, tell us a little bit about your pregnancy. We were kind of chatting before we started here about how pregnancy is so different once you're in it, and you start receiving all this information about what you can buy and do. But how was your pregnancy? Was it relatively normal, the first one? And
so normal. So my first one, basically it was, oh, there's two pink lines, we're pregnant, nothing but excitement. And I think we were a little bit oblivious, which I guess helped us fully enjoy the experience. We just thought, oh wow, we're finally pregnant and we'll get to bring a baby home. But that doesn't always happen for all of us. But yeah, it was perfect, super healthy, and it was low risk, if that makes sense as well. So he was such a groover, and we didn't expect anything to go wrong, let alone in the delivery, especially once we're at the hospital thinking we're going to meet him soon and take him home.
And how many weeks were you?
So I was actually past my due date. I was 41 weeks and 3-ish days when I went into labor with Asher.
So it was natural labor that you started into?
So it was actually induced. I didn't want to go past my due date, but COVID, everywhere's at capacity, and being low risk, we kept doing all the things, all the old wives' tales, and I was at a birth centre and they just kept encouraging us to keep doing everything that we were doing. I had 4 stretch and sleeps in the week before Asher had come, and we were just trying all the things, but he was cozy and wanted to stay, so they ended up breaking my waters, and then everything actually progressed from there. And the labour itself was actually beautiful. I only laboured for about 9.5 hours. In the shower and stuff, it was amazing, but the last 12 minutes was really chaotic. So my natural or physiological birth will always belong to Asher.
So at what point did you realize there was something wrong then?
I guess most mums have a feeling in their gut, I guess that intuition that, oh, something happening, something wrong. And I felt really in control and in the zone that all mums get into when they're in that phase. And then when it got to the pushing phase, I just felt like there was so much pressure, and I was like, oh, I think something is wrong, and it felt like his hand internally was trying to move or something. But I kept being so encouraged, kept saying we're doing great, and no one expected my son to be as big as he was. He was on the 90th percentile when they checked 4 days prior, but I was reassured, scans are a rough estimate, and usually babies are smaller, and given I'm a size 4 to 6 woman, I was constantly reassured. So basically I pushed the head out, and we were shocked he had lots of dark hair. And then from there, with every push, there was this thing called he was squishing back on the perineum, so it's like turtlenecking basically, and that's one of the first signs of shoulder dystocia. So his little cheeks are just squishing back, and at that point, it's really important to note that your care providers should alert somebody, especially if you're a low risk woman, and don't have an obstetric team there or an obstetrician there overseeing the birth. So yeah, that started happening and he just wasn't coming no matter how much we pushed. And then everyone tried their best. Everyone frantically was trying so many maneuvers like the McRoberts, and they got me from standing in the bathroom and moved me to the bedroom. But yeah, somebody was paged to come to the room. But all I can say is if you notice your baby is stuck, you can say, call the code, please someone do something. But I just didn't have the knowledge at the time to know that that's something that I could even do. And when a baby's stuck and being deprived of oxygen, minutes really do matter. So yeah.
So sorry. So did they immediately let you know there was something going on once he was delivered, or were you still okay?
So basically in that little in between of the 12 minutes, well, first of all, I just want to say no one in the room should have had to live with the memories of that, and we are very forgiving and hold no anger in the space that brought Asher into the world in regards to our birth. But yeah, unfortunately, in the chaos of everyone trying to do their best, he was deprived of oxygen and he was unfortunately born blue. So he had passed away after the head was born, and then a resus started. So we weren't really told. Everyone was just trying to do their best, and I guess stop bleeding, get him sorted, get him back. And hubby and I were just in complete shock. We couldn't believe everything was going all la-di-da-di and fine, to just staring at him thinking, please breathe. And it makes me emotional, but no parent should have to go through that, especially if the significance of an incident like that occurring can be reduced, or if it can be managed faster, because it can't always be predicted, a shoulder dystocia, but once it does happen, or if risk factors can be reduced before a lady goes post-dates and baby gets bigger, it could make all the difference.
Well, and mentioning that, I wonder what you think about posts that we see a lot about the baby will know when to be born, and your body will know when to birth your baby appropriately. Like, does that bother you? Because it does me as a parent whose baby died and and also transition. My son was delivered by crash C-section, and I think, well, God, why didn't my body alert me, or why did my baby be born if that's so true?
I have mixed feelings with stuff like that. I totally agree with you. I've definitely felt a lot of what you felt in terms of being like, why didn't my body just do all the things? But I don't know. I believe everyone's journey is really individual, and some people do go post-dates and it's amazing, and I feel safe and empowered, and I guess feeling like you have a continuity of support in a way. Whereas being in an environment where everything's a mess, miscommunication, or stressful at times, with a rush situation, I guess there's just so many factors that I don't think I have the knowledge to comment on it. But I think each to their own. But yeah, when people with large babies specifically encourage others to keep going because they birthed a 4.5 or 4 or 5 kilo baby, that is when I feel the need to speak up and say something, just to be mindful that sometimes things can go positive and great, but this is also a scenario that most people don't even know can exist. So yeah, sometimes I just say, a birth outcome isn't always worth more than not getting to leave the hospital with your child. And I think there's so much societal pressure on births looking a certain way, and all these products based around promoting women to go past and be empowered and feel ready for birth when they're ready. But at the same time, I don't think it is for everyone, and health professionals' advice should be sought out. And if you have concerns of your own, you should push health professionals to look into those things, especially nearing due dates and post dates, especially.
Yeah, I think that's key. And I think that's why it bothers me, because on social media, it's such a one-way conversation a lot of times.
Yeah.
You can put a post with this very, blanket statement for everyone,
Yeah.
and then the people reading may not be the wiser as far as what you just said is, consult your doctor,
Yeah.
make sure your situation is okay to do that. So that's what I would
Yeah.
recommend. It's nice for empowerment and for you to feel good about the pregnancy and your birth plans and
And
everything, but
safe.
make sure it's
Yeah.
like tailored to you.
Exactly, and there needs to be a fine line. Birth isn't a trip to a day spa, but it can be a wonderful, magical, amazing experience for some people. But for those people that may need a little extra assistance, I think it is wise to take into consideration the baby's needs aside from your birth desires, because their life is so much more important. In hindsight, I wish I got a whole lifetime of watching my child grow up opposed to just a week with him. And if someone gave me the option and laid out the risks, it could have been a game changer, but we just didn't know. It was so positively reinforced to keep going, everything's great, very Aussie kind of style, she'll be right. But yeah, I guess it's not always going to be right for everyone and every baby.
Right. And that kind of makes me think about too how people talk a lot about birth trauma and interventions that they felt were unneeded, and perhaps
Yeah.
they felt out of control in the moment because decisions were made for them as the providers,
Mhm.
things that they don't
Yeah.
see. And so I
Mm.
think it's a scary situation for the parent because we do have to give up that control in that moment. But
Right.
personally, I agree with you because I know my son needed interventions and didn't get them
Yeah.
quick enough either. So
Yeah.
different when you're on the other side, and you can say it this way. Whereas when they're on the other side with their living baby and they feel taken, advantage of in a way that they feel that they
Yeah.
lost control and the trauma's there. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We've had many beautiful women and families reach out as well that have had big babies or a shoulder dystocia before, and they didn't realize that a baby passing away or even fractures or nerve damage could even be an outcome. And when I've spoken to them about their emergency Caesars or traumatic experiences that they may have had before, they've found it really healing to look back at the whole situation sometimes and go, whoa, like maybe even though that was traumatic for me, it could have saved my child's life or things like that. And I'm not saying anyone should be grateful purely just to take a baby home, but I think that a situation can become traumatic for anybody if you don't have enough care, enough information, and enough support to make informed decisions. So for me, my second birth was a planned C-section. And I was terrified, but I just accepted that it was the safest thing for my baby. And the care that I had was so different. I was so involved in everything. And there wasn't this kind of don't scare the pregnant woman. It was we'll lay everything out and you make the informed choice. And I really, really appreciated that. So I feel like that could help a lot of women avoid trauma in their birth situation. Because if someone's die hard hoping for a physiological birth or to avoid Caesar, if that seems like the scariest thing out there, it would be nice if when everyone's calm and not in labour, if the care provider said, hey, there's some factors here, they're so minimal, statistically unlikely to happen. Would you like to have a conversation about it or sign a form understanding, consenting to progressing past your due date if you understand, what's given? And I think there's not that opportunity enough, because if a person feels empowered and not making a rash decision when they're tired and in labour, or just whisked away in an emergency, then they have time to comprehend and process and have a bit of sense of agency in what's happening to them and their child. So I believe when things just hit the fan and stuff just gets done to you, and not, you don't feel like it's done for you, even though in the time it is, but it's not serving your emotional well-being, then I believe it can be traumatic in any space or method of birth.
Yeah, I think you're like spot on as far as that, because to me, it seems like a breakdown prior to the birth happened. Like you didn't trust your doctor in the first place, or you didn't like them.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we say we didn't like our
Yeah.
doctor, you know.
Oh,
Like, if you didn't like your doctor, why
yeah.
did you continue with that one? You know, because there's so many options and, you know, maybe not everyone has them, but you can shop
Yeah.
around like you do for other things and see which one's a good
Yeah.
fit. You know,
And
if
so
I
many people don't even know that. They can be like, can I see someone else? Or should we go to another hospital? Or, you know, like just oblivious. It's like you rock up to an appointment and this is who you get. But I actually did love my people that I had, and my heart breaks for everyone that went through the whole thing with us. But yeah, I just think, like, I wish I could have known when we got sent away the first time, to go home and wait for an induction, even though we had everything in the car. We'd be like, please, we're ready. And they're like, go home, low risk. And we were like, okay. So yeah, we were just trusting and like everything will be fine. I'm just being nervous. And then yeah, wanted to touch base with my people, and they, you know, were so encouraging. And yeah, sometimes I think, yeah, just having a different team or being able to speak to people and not feeling like a burden. If you're like, hey, I don't want to undermine you, but can I please speak to someone else here? I think having that freedom, especially for people that don't have confrontational personalities, to say, please, like, I don't want to be difficult, but please, I think there needs to be more space for that as well.
That's really smart. And I think number one, if you have the intuition, the feeling that something's a little bit off with your body or your
Yeah.
baby, is to say, you know, I understand what you're saying is normal. You know, that's what would be
Mm.
for most people, but I'm feeling something's off. And can I please
Yeah.
have a second opinion? Or, you know, you can go seek it out
Yeah.
yourself without even telling them
Yeah.
if you really feel off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, I
That's
think it's
true.
like bottom line, we don't think this can happen to us, especially when we're being reassured. So I don't blame
Yes.
myself, and I know you don't either, that we
Yeah.
couldn't have possibly known it was going to end that way. And if
Yeah,
we had,
definitely
we would
not.
have been, you know, screaming at everyone, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think we have,
100%.
yeah, after we
Yeah.
have the 2020 vision to say this to people like, hey, you need
Yeah.
to speak up for yourself, even though, you know, we thought we were asking
Yeah.
questions, you know. So
Yeah. And I guess it's even having the little seeds sown there of being like, oh, I've heard this story, or I've had this conversation with someone that I care about, and maybe I should act on that feeling. And yeah, a couple of our friends, or people that have become friends through social media after all of this, um, and our story on Instagram and stuff, lots of people have turned around and gone, oh, thank you so much. Like, I didn't even know it could happen. Or they're like, my baby did get stuck and I knew what was happening straight away. And it just made me think, oh, I feel like Ash is watching over his little baby friends being like, woo, yeah. Like, and for me, I'm like, that's a huge win. So hearing anything like that, I'm just like, wow, because I had never come across anything in terms of shoulder dystocia, or stillbirth is a thing, or certain things are a thing, like not seeing cause and stuff, but you never think it's going to happen to you, until it does, and then you're like, why did I not know more about this? So yeah, but as a mum, I guess you just want to do what's best for your babies, and we did the best with what we knew at the time, and sometimes things are just out of our control.
You're so sweet. I feel like I'm opposite of you in this stage of my grief, because I've been grieving for 7 years almost. And
Yeah.
now I'm in
Yeah.
the activist mode, you know, so I'm
Yeah.
very, like, this is my rage mode, I call myself,
Yeah.
2022. Like, you're
Yeah.
still in a very kind mode, but I get really upset with
Yeah.
the system for letting this happen, and like, you know, just to leave it on the
Yeah.
to after to figure things out, because I mean, I didn't have a
Mm.
cause of my death, and I had to go search for the
Yeah.
years until I finally figured it out
Mm.
myself. And it seemed like a complacency, like just to keep doing things the way they do.
Yeah.
I don't know, in your care, I know that there are ways to intervene. So if they were
Yeah.
noticing an issue, like, why didn't they, you know, get in
Yeah.
there? And it's hard. I know you don't want to have that feeling of like they failed you in
The
that
what?
situation, but
Yeah.
And I know you're educating, which is great because now you know
Thank
and you can tell parents, but I feel like it shouldn't be up to us, the mothers,
you. Yeah.
like,
No.
hey, we don't have a medical degree, just by the way, everybody, we just learned
Yeah.
sadly through lived experience, and which is
Yeah.
very important to share and people to learn from, because
Yeah.
books will tell you things, but it's not for, there's not that much research. There
Yeah.
isn't that much information because it hasn't been
Exactly.
heard. Maternity care
Yeah.
is so basic in our country. I don't know how well yours is handled, but we don't have the same protocol at every hospital,
Yeah. Oh,
for most of these things.
yeah. Yeah. I guess in Australia, there's I guess like statistically, there's stuff going on, and for me, I would love every single person to get to take their baby home. But there's some gaps that I've realized after our experience where financially it's not profitable or it's nonsensical to offer a certain level of care to everyone if they're low risk. And that's very unfortunate. I wish, well, here we have Medicare, and I guess I wish that they would just cover a scan for every woman later in pregnancy, and it could pick up cord issues, placental issues, and things like that. And then also give women with large babies like myself um, the opportunity to talk through things and have a bit more of a care plan and weeks to understand what that means, research, and then I kind of guess advocate for yourself. But yeah, I love everything that you're doing as well, because these conversations are so needed. And I guess the changes that are coming about after stuff are only coming from parents who have experienced loss, sadly. And it might seem like, oh, one in every however many ends up with an undesirable result. But at the end of the day, that's a mother, that's a father, that's a whole generation wiped off a family tree that could have been. And yeah, I guess when it hits home for you, you want to do more. But when you see the statistics and you're a healthcare professional and your job is only within this perimeter, it's hard, to do something unless you have this fire inside you, like you have this drive that's been built up over 7 years. So yeah, I hope you get to change everything, especially with the Shine Act as well that you're setting out to do.
Yeah, we're lucky here. We have 2 acts now. So if anyone wants to support stillbirth prevention, it's Shine for Autumn Act and the Maternal and Child Health Stillbirth Prevention Act of 2022, which is a long name for
Yeah,
just basically including stillbirth and the Title V funding we already have for avoiding infant death, which we
yeah,
believe our stillborn, our babies who were stillborn are also considered babies, and they were born, they were
yeah,
delivered. So we should be preventing that. Most of them are full
yeah,
term, and yours was too full term. So I feel like
yeah,
people turn a blind eye to birth deaths because they think of it like a
yeah,
pregnancy loss, perhaps, and like,
yeah.
oh, I just have another baby. And I don't know how you got so
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone saw Asher, and he's so beautiful, by the way. And
Well, thank
I'm sure you
you.
got your sympathy hopefully for a while, but for me it ended
Yeah,
pretty quickly because it,
yeah,
it was like he wasn't real. Like he just, I did have a burial. I did have
yeah,
people come see that. But
yeah,
after that, it's like, okay, so she's mourning for a little while, and then maybe she'll have another baby. Maybe she'll be happy now. And
yeah.
you change as a person, and you'll
No,
never forget your
not at
child that you
all.
lost.
Yeah, and I don't know if you experienced it, but I found that losing a baby was unlike losing any other loved one I ever have experienced, because like I've lost my mum as well and other loved ones, but no one once said to me, oh, it's okay, you're young, you'll find another mother figure in your life. Or there was never this, oh, it's okay, like just try again. And you're like, my home was ready for a child. And I don't think people understand the limbo. Your life is then got to a certain point and it's on hold, and you have all the things and all the dreams and the desires, but you can't act on any of them. But you're a mother to, maybe it's your first or others, but you'll always be a parent to the amount of children that you love from the second those lines turn pink, whether it's infant loss, pregnancy loss, child loss later on down the track. Once your heart changes and you're a parent at heart, every loss is so relative. And yeah, it's so hard when people just go, oh yeah, go on to the next one. Like, when are you going to try again months out? And you're like, what? It's kind of surreal, to be honest.
Yeah, I hear that all the time about like, well, if your spouse dies, they're like, oh, don't worry, you'll get another one, I guess. Like, is that appropriate to say to someone? That's not very kind.
No, you're like, but I want my person that I loved a lot back, please. Or like, yeah, so it's hard navigating stuff like that. But I guess the pregnancy after loss did bring a lot of joy, but it comes at a different time for everyone. And when the people are ready, and it doesn't replace the child that you've lost in any way, shape, or form. Because even when you have more, you'll be thinking, oh, I should have had 2 or 3, or there's always something or someone missing at every single event of every day of your life from now on. So yeah, I think that's forgotten about sometimes.
Mhm. So share a little bit about that pregnancy, because we obviously have you on social media. You're pretty popular on
Yeah.
Instagram. So if anyone wants to follow, if you aren't already, you can follow Immi Walker, and her page is beautiful. I think your photos are so lovely. And I will say it was a very like nice thing to see the pregnancy and how you
Oh,
were
yeah.
doing. And, you know, I always take everything with a grain of salt because I know what you're going through. So I'm like, she's
Yeah.
finally showing the good stuff. So how was it really for you?
To be honest, it felt like I was holding my breath the whole time. It was very different to my first, where I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. I'm going to bring a baby home. That time I was just like, I love this little human, and I'm going to try my best every single day to be present and stay calm, even though that didn't always work. I was just like, I just want to try be with this person for as long as I get them. It's like my heart was like, this is out of a Disney movie, this amazing romanticized thing of taking babies home, and it just seemed like a beautiful fairy tale, a beautiful dream that I wanted. But my heart was like, we've experienced a nightmare, and it's like a part of me didn't believe that that was going to be true for us. And I'm Kristen, and I hang on to faith a lot, and I just believed. I was like, please, like, surely this is going to be different. And a lot of times I just had to put faith over fear. But it was, yeah, I don't think people understand. It was a conscious effort every single day. It was a conscious choice to try and mental health wise do my best. And yeah, it wasn't as blasé and full of, all the cute toys and stuff as my first pregnancy was. I was very aware, and I just felt like a huge protective mama bear. Like, I felt like if I didn't know what I wanted and what was going to be best for my child, that fate would have it that my blaseness would just sneak in again. I was terrified of that, but now he's here and he's safe. And yeah, I just had to keep challenging my fears a lot of the time. Like, I was worried about a C-section and the spinal, which, by the way, was so calm for my situation, a plan. I got to avoid a lot of the PTSD and stuff the second time around, being triggered in the birth space, because we had the opportunity to plan so many things out and visit everyone that will be in the room and visit the rooms. And everyone talked to us as people before everything got really stressful. So we just really understood what was happening. And I never once felt like anything was done to me without my knowledge or full consent. So I feel like that was really powerful, in the sense that having the plan for us really helped us avoid all of that. So that was a positive at the end of my pregnancy. It was amazing. But yeah, it was a lot of work to remain on top of all those what ifs.
Yeah. So my first question, because there's so many about this for me, is,
Yeah.
did you continue with the same care team from the loss?
Mm. I'm not too sure, to be honest. My husband and I were quite relaxed and go with the flow. I think our parenting style is quite the same as what it would be. We're very gentle
Oh no,
natured,
I
but
meant you didn't hear my my wording. It was,
in terms of the
did you have
parent.
the same care team, the same providers?
I thought you said parenting.
No. I know you guys. You guys are so sweet. I and her
Oh,
husband as well. I see him on your page too.
oh, he's a
No, I'm
sweetheart.
just curious because a lot of us switch after a loss. Like we
Yeah.
won't necessarily trust the person, or we didn't like the type of care we got, or maybe you
Yeah.
got a better level of care. I don't know how it worked there.
Yeah. So, yeah, scrap the whole parenting thing.
We can talk about that
Um,
at the end.
my care actually, we decided just so that we could be as focused on Miller as possible and not reignite a lot of the trauma and the grief, that it was just best for us to go private, and through a different hospital. I thought as many different things as possible, the better. I was like, I want his story to be as different as possible. So that's what we chose. And I noticed a few very big contrasts between the private and the public care. Because it's not that I didn't trust the care providers that I had the first time enough to go back to them. It's the fact that I didn't trust the system to be able to offer them the support they needed to do their job well and thoroughly. And there's room for human error in every situation. You can't expect anyone to be on their A game and doing an amazing job when hospitals are at capacity, and there's a lot of factors going on sometimes in multiple births. So we went private, and our obstetrician only took on a certain amount of women over certain periods of time in the year. And then we were welcome to come get scans at any point. We were never treated like it was a nuisance that we should call back in an hour, have an orange juice, walk around the block. We were never gently reassured by being like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. Remember, you're young, you're healthy, you're under 35, all of that type of stuff. It was, we trust your gut, come in. And if it's fine, it's totally okay. It was so much more supportive. And the first few times I was terrified of going into hospital. And yeah, a midwife sat with me at a check and held my hand. She was like, you can come anytime. It's not a nuisance to anyone. We're never over swamped, if that makes sense. And it just made me really calm and relax and know that I could, or that Miller could have care whenever he needed it. So it made me feel reassured in looking after him, that if I was worried, I could just go and see people and get that reassurance. But I know not everyone has access to private healthcare, but I think as well, just trust your gut. Go to the hospital as many times as you need and be unapologetic about it. If you need to be. And you know what, if everything ends up being right and fine, that's awesome. At least as a mum, you did what was on your heart, and who cares if it wastes an hour or two out of your day, at least it's worth it. So yeah, I think there was a big difference in my care, and I probably, being the sensitive soul that I am, won't be comfortable going back to that same hospital and being public again. But that's just me. I don't know what your experience was like.
Right. So here we don't have the option of a public versus private. They're all, we pay for our medical care. So
Yeah.
it's definitely up to us where we go. We have different types of plans though, where you can pay more, So I think that's kind of similar to what you went through there. And I did find my daughter is what I used the initial as a PPO plan, where you see just one doctor. And that was definitely more thorough. And I think he cared a lot more because it was his own practice. His name's on the building, it's his thing.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to just let something happen. Whereas where I saw in the groups, it was a lot of like inconsistency of care, tossing you to the doctor, and no one really knew their patients. There was just so many coming in and out. And right now we have problems with COVID too, overloading the hospital system. So
yeah,
I'm sure there's that situation for pregnancy. So I agree, like even if you feel like foolish about it, which I did even the night I went in, when I noticed the change in movement, I felt like I was being a little like over the top, like what could be wrong? Like I didn't know stillbirth could just happen in a normal pregnancy like mine. So I didn't have that idea really that he was dying. I just thought like something's off here. Should I go check? And then I was like,
Yeah,
let me just check. I mean, it's the middle of the night, but I went over there and
yeah,
I still felt like I was being crazy. Like there's no reason I should
yeah,
be here right now. And then to find out that he
yeah,
was in distress, I start to
yeah,
tell people all the time, like, you have to trust that no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter, like you said, if
100%.
it's wrong, it's wrong, or if they find
Yeah,
something, they can intervene, thankfully, a lot of
yeah.
times. So it's
Yeah,
important.
100%. And I think it's so important, like you said, to just go. Like if you have a feeling, just go. And don't let anyone talk you out of it. Because I found the worst thing the first time was, I'd be reassured, and if I still wanted to go anyway, I felt like I would be being a nuisance, or not a nuisance, but there are people with high risk pregnancies that do need certain levels of care, and you don't want to take care away when you know the system's struggling a bit from someone else as well. So it's so hard to be like, oh, am I wasting people's time? I just need reassurance. And yeah, I just wish that when a woman is presenting and even needing reassurance, that she is met and reassured. And if the baby's great, can go home. And if not, they have a plan rather than needing reassurance and being sent away, or then having someone question why they're there when that woman might be doing that in her head as well, because it just solidifies that your gut maybe shouldn't be listened to as much as it should, and really it's the most important thing.
Right. And I do get feedback from parents here who say, well, I said something, and then they either falsely reassured me, or they did one little NST and they said it looked good and they told me to go home, or they just checked the
Yeah,
heartbeat, or they gave up
yeah,
the attitude, and they didn't come back again the second time when it was
yeah,
necessary. So the
yeah,
attitude of the providers has to change for that, because it's
yeah.
not making you feel like you're doing the right thing, like you said.
Yeah, 100%. And I reckon there needs to be a culture shift in all birth spaces, whether it's, community centre, public, private, whatever type of hospital. I think if a woman is concerned and it can be addressed, even if they have to wait or whatever, I think it should be. But yeah, it's just crazy how many stories you find out where people, slip through the cracks and stuff. And it's like, oh, like hindsight is a horrible thing for a parent to live with, but the person that just brushed you off, whatever, probably won't even remember that interaction a week or two later. And if it leads to your baby passing away, you have to, navigate life with those, oh, what if, should I have said? And no one deserves to go through any of that. So at least you could go home and stand your ground with someone and be like, everything's okay, or everything wasn't okay, but at least I didn't let my worry of how I would be perceived by someone else affect how I'm going to look after my baby. Like it's so hard. And I only felt empowered the second time around. Yeah, the first time I just, so trusting, like everyone knows what they're doing. They're saying it's fine, it's probably fine. Like, yeah.
Right. And I wonder also, I mean, you did pay for your second pregnancy
Yeah.
privately, but also they knew you had lost the baby. So I think their level
Yeah.
of concern was higher than it would have been if they still thought you were low risk.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
treatment
And
might be
some
different.
yeah, the treatment was like so different, and it amazed me going to my obstetric appointment, getting towards I think it was the second or third trimester, and I was like, I know I should feel like I can relax now, but I can't, because I was obviously a bit more aware to the lost community, and I just thought nothing's a given. Gonna love this baby, and I'm not gonna believe it until they're here and screaming. And then I'll be like, but yeah, my care provider actually said to me, "So, what are you worried about? What are you looking forward to? Are you stressed at all?" And she was like, "Give me a percentage," and I said, oh, I was after the heartbeat check and everything and ultrasound, I was feeling about 90% good. I was like, oh, he's okay. Because scans can be so hard for people when you've lost a baby at any point. But I was feeling quite reassured, but I said, I'm still just stressed. Like, I just don't feel like everything's going to be okay. And she said, well, I want to hear about the 10%. And she just held space for me to talk about it. And then we even talked about birthing in some natural light and trying to make me feel as calm as can be, and going over things that would be triggers. And I just remember thinking, I'm sitting across from an obstetrician. where my first birth journey, it made it seem like if I was seeing an obstetrician or having a C-section, it was like worst case scenario, like you'd be there because something's wrong. And I was there because I wanted this to go so right. And yeah, to have my obstetrician saying, oh, natural light, and tell me about the 10% of stress and things like that. Like you said, name on the building, they're there because that's what they've chosen. And yeah, it was just so different. Every time I left an appointment, I was just gobsmacked. I was like, all right, if anyone's got us, she does. Like, yeah.
Right. So how early did you decide on the C-section on your pregnancy? Was that like planned right from the get-go or once you got further along?
Yeah, so funny story. And I can't disclose names because we have a case and everything like that going on still for Asher. But we had a wonderful person, I guess, have our story on their heart in the hospital. And they spoke to us human to human and just said, you know, this shouldn't have happened. If you came across my room or my care, you wouldn't have left the hospital and waited for induction. And I was advised, just have Caesars, please, just do it. And I had been on support pages and they had said, you know, you can go on, don't listen, don't listen. But for me, I just thought I knew that I wouldn't be able to survive making a choice of a birth over advice for my child's life. I was like, I can heal for a scar and that's my preference, but it might be different for someone else. So yeah, it was very different, but I decided actually at the point of that conversation when Asher was still laying in the NICU that I would be having a Caesar. And then I had heard a name a couple of times around at a beautiful hospital in Subi, and my sister-in-law and a beautiful friend that's a teacher actually had their babies through her. And yeah, I thought, let's go in and book an appointment. And I called her up one day. We weren't even trying to conceive, just to see in the next 2 years if she had space or so. And she did. And she invited us for a family planning meeting, which I didn't even know was a thing. And yeah, I just said to her, I don't even want to know about other options. I just cut me open and get my baby here. And I was like, if it has to be hip to hip, I don't care what it looks like. It's just, yeah, I was like full rein to do what you need to do. And she was fantastic. So yeah, I wasn't even pregnant when I made the choice for a C-section, but I definitely had to work through accepting it and getting over the fear in the first few trimesters.
Did your doctors say that that would be more necessary because of what happened? Because I know what happened, it's not necessarily like your body didn't expand a certain way. I don't know did you find out why it was caused in your case? Because I know you're not overweight, so there's a lot of things that your baby didn't have too big, Asher. So I'm not sure that they give you any more information as to why that ended up happening.
So basically with shoulder dystocia, and in my case, they can't always predict it's going to happen. So if you have gestational diabetes or a macrosomic baby, like a baby that's, I think it's over 4.5 or 4 kilos, or gestational diabetes, usually if you're in a high risk category because of things like that or a previous shoulder dystocia birth, you'll have an obstetric care team offer an earlier induction or a C-section. The woman probably, unless she pushes for it, will not be left to go post-dates quite far on into weeks. But yeah, for me, I guess the only risk factor was that he was a macrosomic baby, so he was large, but yeah, it just happened. And obviously once you've had one, you're at risk of more. But it's so weird to me that I could have been laying next to a woman the same size as me, same age, the same gestational age baby, and if she had gestational diabetes, she would have had the options for care and would have never been offered to go to 42. But me being low risk, I didn't even know that what I was offering, what I was being offered was kind of not okay. And I didn't know I was allowed to ask for anything outside of that, or it is okay for some people, but I was never presented with the option of full knowledge, and I was never able to say, oh, I actually don't consent to those risks happening. Like, I don't want to do that. Is there another option? I just didn't know. So yeah.
But Emmy, to be honest, and I'm gonna tell you, like, I don't know that you would have done anything different because the risk level is so low. Like when someone tells us
Yeah.
the percentage, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
even what, it's not even a percent, right? That people
Yeah,
have
it's
shoulder
so
dystocia.
far off, but I feel like if someone mentioned shoulder dystocia and the gut feelings that I was having, like he was he was big, and he was only estimated 4.1. Now that should only be about 15% out max, because scans aren't accurate, unfortunately, even though everyone gets here through being born. There's not better technology, and I don't know why, but I wish there was. But yeah, Ashley was actually 4.9 kilos. And some babies, basically, I'll explain shoulder dystocia. When a baby gets born, one or both of their shoulders or part of their body can become impacted and stuck in the pelvis. And then the maneuvers kind of help free the shoulders and boom, baby's born. But when you've got a big baby and a tiny person, it's just not going to work without things getting broken or damaged or oxygen being deprived, or the proper maneuvers helping to facilitate that safe birth. And next to no shoulder dystocias end up in death like ours. That's really important to know. And people can go on to have successful births, natural physiological with big babies. But yeah, for us, I know in my gut that I wanted this water birth at the birth center. And the second I started feeling like he was big and I was pushing for all the stretch and sweeps, my poor husband was getting dragged on hikes and walks everywhere. I was doing everything. My gut was just like, this is wrong. And every day I would wake up and just cry because I was like, he didn't come last night. Like, what's wrong? And yeah, so I think if I had had an informed conversation, because I kept asking for people to talk to me about it and no one was talking to me about it, texts weren't being replied to, there was changes over of staff, and I expressed that I was feeling quite anxious, and I was like, can someone just have a talk to me? Like, what does this mean? A later induction and a big baby, like what? But there was just crickets, unfortunately. So
Yeah, and there's
yeah,
several risks for you with the big baby. I mean, you could have cord compressions happening. The
yeah,
cord could have been in a certain way that was keeping your baby from coming out, you know, around, we have a lot of
yeah,
nuchal cord deaths that we know of, and people say,
yeah,
oh, well, the nuchal cord doesn't do anything, but you know, that's because
yeah,
we know of so many survival stories and percentage
yeah,
wise, and you know, we know the percentage. It doesn't matter about the percentage.
yeah.
There's still
And
a risk.
when
Yeah.
you're the one on the opposite end of all those reassuring factors, you're like, why did I win the bad lottery? Like, oh. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's crazy. I would not have left the hospital and let them rebook in, even though I said, can we have him now? And they were like, oh, in a few days' time. And I was like, I need to speak to my midwife. Like, let me text her. And then it was, oh, okay, I'll go and I'll just have another stretch and sweep and I'll try my best again. Like, I wouldn't I wouldn't have settled for that. If someone even said he could have, like, oh, we might have to fracture your child's arm to get him out, I'd be like, my tiny little person does not need that in their first few moments entering the world. No, thank you. Like, yeah. And so I think I just wish someone realized that I was like, I don't care about my water birth, induce me. I don't care about this method of birth, break my waters. I was like, just get him here safe, please. I just wish, I just wish I would have known more so that I could have actually said, hey, this is what I want and I need to speak to someone else. Because, yeah, but I think you're right in the sense that would I have done some things differently? I don't know. I may have still birthed at that hospital. I may have still had the same team. I may have still gotten induced that day, even. But induction actually does increase the risk of the shoulder dystocia ever so slightly. And I didn't even know that was a factor. Like, to put it out there that I was so oblivious to shoulder dystocia being a thing, I think is even an understatement. So,
No, I don't
yeah.
know that I knew anything about it at all. And I wouldn't have thought it. And I think most women watching now probably wouldn't have thought it. That's why I said that, not so much for you, because I know you probably had your feelings and you were having the intuition that something's wrong and you were
Yeah.
communicating all the way. And No, but for
Yeah.
someone else watching, if you're feeling that way right now and you have a
Mm.
bigger partner, maybe, I know your husband's quite tall. I don't know if he's a lot
Yeah.
taller. So like that's my case. My husband's 6'8" and I'm
Yeah.
small.
Oh
I'm
wow.
5'7". So for me,
Yeah.
I think our body types created always bigger babies, you know.
Yeah.
And so for
Yeah.
my little body to birth through the natural way, I don't think I could have, even if I that ever been my case.
Yeah.
Like I actually had to have all C-sections. So
Oh wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
different reasons. But
Wow.
honestly,
Yeah.
like if you start to feel that way and the doctor's like, oh, well, this is normal. What's not normal for me, you know,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think I'm feeling right now. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And my body is
Yeah.
just not behaving the way it normally would for every woman, you know, so please do
Yeah.
something here. Like, and I know I'm saying it
Yeah.
because I think like in retrospect, we can say we would have done this, we would have done that, but we would have still been
Mhm.
kind of the same. I feel
Yeah.
personally, unless someone told me and I was watching this about shoulder dystocia, I would have been like, well, I don't even know that. Like, unless someone told
Yeah.
it, like, no, that's not going to happen to my baby, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really
Yeah.
tough to say
100%.
like, oh, I would have done this differently, but the providers did fail in the sense that they didn't communicate to you all this information and really watch you and make sure like when you started to say these things over and over that they
Yeah.
did more than just reassure you falsely.
Yeah, and I wish as well, like in terms of false reassurance, and if my beautiful care providers do even end up watching this at some point, I don't lay blame because I know it's so important for birthing women to feel supported and not tense and closed, like open in the birth space, everything like that. But um, like there was a point in those 12 minutes before stuff got really serious where I just remember just my gut going, oh, something's wrong. And I, mid birth and being all primal, my foot was like in the shower and on the toilet and then on the basin. And I was like, primarily, I think I was just moving my body instinctively, just being like, this isn't working. This isn't. Oof. And obviously, the turtlenecking is a sign which I wasn't aware of a mother that if picked up for someone else, if that's happening to them and their team's like, right, got to do this, not giving the woman a chance to just have this birth, to hands off, not intervene. I think sometimes if conversation can happen before of, hey, you know, you're at risk of this. Do you just want us to intervene? And what are your wishes in that? And what do you consent to? Because we'll just go for it. Like that would have been so important because I remember so many people trying certain things and the last thing that happened that got him out was extremely brutal. But if I knew that he was dying, if I knew, you know, I would have just been like, get him out, like I can have physio, like just rip him out. And obviously that ended up happening to an extent, and I went home without a child and those injuries, and I much rather would have gone home with those injuries and with my son. So yeah, I think, you know, it's easy to say, you know, I would want this or want that or want desires, but at the end of the day, your wants for your birth and your wants for your child, um, they can actually be very different. And I think so much focus is on the birth that it needs to be shifted onto the woman and her baby and what she consents to happening to her body and her baby, rather than just, yeah, I guess giving it, you know, seeing how it goes or giving it the chance. Like, I think if a situation can have a horrible outcome, the chance and the waiting and the umming and the ahhing and the it's all good, you're doing great, I feel like it shouldn't go from being that positive and everyone being involved and, you know, just an amazing environment to suddenly chaos and how did this happen? Yeah, I think there should be
Dramatic.
more room for understanding before there's such stark contrast happens. So yeah.
I agree. And I think the emphasis of birth plans right now is on experience. So
Yeah.
anybody creating a birth plan, that's beautiful to know how you want it set up and how you want the room and the
Mm.
colors and the lighting and the
Yeah.
everything that's going to happen with your music and all
Mm.
this great stuff is wonderful. But don't forget to like think about risk factors, like Emmy just said, have a real conversation with
Yeah.
the provider, like, hey, what
Mm.
kind of risk do I stand in this pregnancy? I know I'm low risk, but what things could possibly
Yeah.
happen and what will we do together
Yeah.
in those
Yeah.
situations. And I want, obviously, for me and stillbirth prevention, the
Mm,
time is of the essence. Like there's chances to save
yeah.
babies, especially if you're kid counting and and you're aware and you're saying, there's a change here. Can you please check on my baby?
Yeah.
This needs to be done
Yeah.
quickly, and you need to get a baby out quickly before the damage of hypoxia and lack of
100%.
oxygen happens. So we cannot
Yeah.
have people stumbling around and like, oh, we don't know what's happening.
No.
Everyone's freaking out, even
Yeah.
the providers. You're like, no, well, you have to know what to do
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah, and the thing is, my heart just like sinks for anyone in anyone's lost journey, even the care providers, obviously the parents that lose a baby. I'm like, "Oh, I wish you didn't have to go through that. I feel so bad for you." But even the care providers, like some people being out in the hall and just distraught, and people crying with us in the NICU, and people just going, "This shouldn't have happened." And me as a parent being like, "I don't understand, but this person is saying, X, Y, Z," and it's just a lot for anyone to go through. And if it can be preventable for parents and even healthcare providers to an extent, or if early intervention can help, why not? I mean, throw all the money at it. I swear every mum would tick a box for her tax going towards better women's healthcare if they could. So yeah, one day I
Emmy
hope we'll get
for
there.
president. What do you guys have over there? um, we need women in power. That's the problem. I think
Oh,
people think of it like a maternity care issue, but it's a family issue. These are
yeah,
our babies for, your partner. We haven't talked much about grief or
yeah,
anything like that, but we all go through it together, and it's a horrible experience to live a whole
yeah,
lifetime without a child.
yeah. Yeah, it is. It's horrible. And even for staff living with the what if, so I wonder how that family's going. I feel like healthcare professionals will forever have their certain people and their stories that just stay on their hearts. Like they can't get their journey or being a part of their journey out of their heads. And no one should sometimes have to live with the things that everyone has to live with when a loss occurs, especially if everyone's like, could I have done something? Or yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah, and I think you highlight some really important points earlier as far as what the care provider can even do because of the system they're in. And that's what we have
Yeah.
here too, is I think it's a systemic failure. I don't think any individual doctor is not doing a good job or wanting to do a good job, but they just can't. They're just so strapped for time and resource, and even
Yeah.
protocols like ours do not advance quickly enough here. We're still working on trying to get ACOG to have stillbirth prevention protocols for us to follow, because the UK has that, and they've already by over 25%, I think by now, has been lowered very quickly in 3 years. And we know we can do really well here as far as, because we do have the access, we have resources, we're just not using them appropriately, and we're not empowering the
Yeah.
parents. It's information, like you said,
Yeah.
informed consent and like information is just so important, so we can be aware,
Yeah.
be active participants in the care, other than just letting them do like the basic stuff coming in and out, and then feeling like, well, something's a little off, but they're telling me it's okay. That's not
Mhm.
okay for
Yeah.
care, especially for a little human being
Yeah.
inside.
And I think there shouldn't be this difference in, this demographic of woman gets offered this and this demographic of woman gets offered this. And if there's a big difference there, something's wrong, and we should be having a conversation about it. To be told that, I would have only been offered a C-section or not leaving the hospital, even under a public obstetrician, it's very hard to know that, how would I have had the opportunity to come across this person's path? And you rack your brain about if this happened differently, or if I knew to ask for this person. And the reality is that's not the parent's fault at all in a situation like that, but the system kind of was like, oh, okay, here's the box you're in. This is what we're going to offer you. And the woman's going, oh, okay, if my care provider's offering me XYZ, I need to pick from XYZ. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I think it gives us all the work and makes us feel awful after, like we didn't do something. And in reality,
Yeah.
like we couldn't have known better. I didn't go to school for this.
Yeah.
I've seen pregnancies go
Yeah.
well in those situations too. Like you said, other people have big babies. Why would you be so worried if nobody else was worried?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think overall, just knowledge is power, and I just urge anyone, if you have a feeling, just speak to people about it, or don't think, oh, I don't want to scare myself, I don't want to have this conversation. It's your damn baby, you should get informed. Like, yeah, so
Yeah, I
yeah.
can't tell you the number of people who will comment when I'm educating on TikTok and they'll say, stop scaring pregnant women. I'm like, I am not
Yeah,
scaring pregnant women. I'm actually preparing her to know something so that when she's in that
yeah,
situation, she might know to activate herself a little bit quicker and like, advocate
100%.
and be like, trust her gut.
Mm.
Like that's what
Mhm.
I'm doing. I don't know about scaring women. Like if I had known this,
Mhm.
I would have probably acted differently. And the
Yeah,
within, like maybe I would have been more aware prior to, with movement
yeah.
changes and everything.
Hmm.
So I think it's ridiculous. This like we're acting like women are little girls still. We
I
can handle a
know.
lot more than you think we can handle, and we are
Yeah,
smart. We all,
yeah,
well-educated women. This happens to everybody.
yeah. And hey, I mean, there's some people that might not want to know, but the care provider or whatever information you're seeing, if you see something, it's on you to keep scrolling if you want. And I wish all care providers were like, you may be at risk of this, or this is something that can happen in any pregnancy. Would you like a pamphlet on it? Do you consent to taking this? And then it is the woman's choice. I think this is crazy. Like, even so many people being like, oh, shoulder dystocia doesn't happen to every baby. I have a big baby, that's fine. I'm like, I'm so grateful that your child is here safe and sound. And that's amazing that you had that journey, but not everyone's journey is the same. So it's best to be informed, and then other families can go and have those conversations themselves. And I think what you're doing is great because it's sowing the seed for if things do pop up. And I think that's important. I think being like me and never having heard of this and being oblivious, um, it just adds an element if you do end up being a grieving parent to like, where was my head? Was I living under a rock, just thinking everything was gonna be great? Like, who was I to be entitled to thinking that this meant taking a baby home? So yeah, I mean, everyone should get to, but yeah, it was just crazy. And I think what you're doing is just amazing because someone might be like, oh, in bed one night thinking, oh, like that's unusual, haven't felt them, maybe go in. And then in a moment like that, a woman might be scared, flicking through, or that thought is unpleasant, being like, oh, like I don't want that to happen to my baby. But an unpleasant thought for a second, when in 2 seconds later, people are going to be scrolling past, laughing at a cat video or whatever, that 2 seconds could save a whole lifetime. So it's so important. I think comments like that just like need a or delete.
Well, I usually comment back because also
Yeah.
people spread misinformation and they'll say like, oh, my baby was fine, like you said, or, oh, just drink some juice and then your baby will wake up. Like, stop saying the same darn thing that we've been
Yeah.
saying to women all these years. That is the reason why we have actually our stillbirth rate is stagnant for many decades here. No improvement.
Yeah.
So there's a reason for
Yeah.
that. It's because we're not actually informing anyone and we're not trying to do anything
Yeah.
differently. And
Yeah.
yeah, just telling each other the same old wives' tales, which are,
Yeah.
baby run out of room. It's okay. No, it's not okay. If your baby is not
No.
like they normally would, that's a sign that there might be some distress. It doesn't even mean like your
Yeah.
baby is dying, but like maybe your
Yeah.
fluid is low, maybe you might have an infection and that might cause you to go into
Yeah.
labor. Like there's so many little things that you don't know.
Yeah.
Just go
Mhm.
tell your doctor right away. That's all I
Yeah.
say, like who cares what
Yeah.
anyone else in your family or online will tell you. You need to be like very communicative about those things. That's just
Yeah. Can I also ask you, in the US, do they have a scan at every appointment, given that you pay for care?
no.
No. Oh my
The low risk
gosh.
pregnancies are probably about the same as your public health, I would say.
Oh my,
And then
yeah, it sounds similar, hey, because I think we have the scans. We have a dating scan early on, an anatomy scan, um, and like I think past 28 weeks or whatever one they have. I think there's some at the start in the first and second trimester, but there's none in the third until you go a week over due date if you're low risk. And I'm just thinking if there was even a scan around 35 weeks, just for everyone, standard, public or private, it could catch so much.
yeah,
Like,
that's what we would like to see too. So everyone,
yeah,
let's make a big bill for that for the world.
yeah,
We all want,
big
yeah.
baby.
you
I
know,
know
and
if anyone's watching this and knows how to do that stuff and change these laws, please point us in the right direction because we will get fired up and make it happen.
oh, it will. Give us another year. We have two bills to pass right now, but that's so important. I think the final trimester is when this is happening. So,
Mm,
and so many babies, and they're full term. They're babies that could be rescued because they're all
yeah,
viable. We
yeah,
fight over all sorts of things with pregnancy, and a lot of
yeah.
people are up in arms about different things right now. And like, hello, we are letting full term babies die, and nobody's helping us. That's what's so pathetic to me.
Yeah, it's like, oh, but your pregnancy equals healthy, or your pregnancy might equal low risk. But it's like the pregnancy and the baby are two different entities. Like, yes, your baby is a part of your pregnancy, but your baby and the cord and their fluid levels and all this stuff going on, why not just double check? We have those things early on, check later on. And I'm sure if any woman was given the opportunity from 30 weeks to go, hey, you have access to a plan, Medicare won't cover a C-sec, a ultrasound on this plan, but if you want it and you want it to be part of your birth plan or prenatal journey or whatever, I know so many parents that would be like, well, I spent a couple hundred on a crib, I spent money on a car seat. This is getting to see my child again, and it's reassurance. Why not? Like,
Well,
why
not to
not? If we had
mention,
to
it's
put
not a
the
high
money
cost
in,
item, Emmy. Like if they have the
I
ultrasound
know,
machine there already, they can easily do it. My provider,
no,
like my first pregnancy that I paid for the PPO plan that was higher,
yeah,
he had the machine in his space. So like literally
yeah,
anytime I was there, he was doing a scan, and he would do
oh
it with
yeah,
someone, and he would make sure they were doing every little inch of my daughter.
that's
They were
awesome.
so accurate. And so he
Yeah.
wouldn't let us leave. Like I hated him for a while because he used to make us wait for like hours in the waiting room. And I'm like, what's
Oh,
wrong? Like,
I'm
and he not keep
stressed.
the schedule. And then now I come to realize it's because he's giving every patient the time needed, and he's not rushing. He would
That's
not
so
let them
important.
rush. Like I
Yeah,
remember specifically because I thought he was like really over the top. He would tell the lady who was doing the thing, she's like, going
yeah,
around. He says, "No, go back. You missed a spot. You have to
yeah. It's like, is
this." And
everything
he's like
okay?
scolding her almost, and I was like, what is wrong with this guy, right? But I'm like, now I
Yeah,
know he
yeah,
was doing his job, and he was doing a great
yeah,
job. And I thank you, Dr. Navi, if you're watching.
yeah.
But at the time it was like, why is this appointment always late? I didn't get it because
Like, I make appointments for a reason. I have stuff to do now, but I love that. That's
yeah.
so good that you're
So
so
if you're
proud.
waiting in the waiting room, it's actually a good sign that your doctor is a good doctor.
Yeah, oh, that's
No, but
amazing.
I think
Yeah.
like the scans are not expensive. They have the machinery. They're not giving you
No.
the difference.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that most people like, well, in public here, if you're low risk, you probably won't even get given the option to have another one unless you come in for monitoring or you have a concern or you ask for it. Like it's not going to be offered to you for no reason if you're low risk. So yeah, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, we need to
Because
erase the risk name thing too, because
I
I was a low
know.
risk situation until everything happened, and then I was a
Yeah,
high risk patient. So it's ridiculous to say that.
yeah,
Like,
right.
how do you
And
know
the thing
I'm
is
not
as well.
high risk?
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, as well, with my pregnancy was low risk. My delivery was not, and that was not made obvious. And I was not an active, informed person in understanding that and what I could equip myself with. So, yeah, I just wish they saw pregnancy and, other factors as separate things and different risk factors. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh well. But
Honest.
yeah, it's weird here in public and private. In private, similar to in the UK, they have the machine there and you'll get to see your baby every single time if you want to. Which I think is amazing. And it's just covered in the fees. So yeah,
But
very
you know what? That's
different.
like a high tech solution, which not every country will have.
Mm,
I will say, like, if we just start listening
yeah.
to a woman and her concerns and how she
Mm,
feels in her body, that will
yeah.
probably catch a lot of situations a lot more than you would even think. Because,
Mm,
I mean, you have places like India that are having like greatly
yeah.
higher rates of stillbirth, And they're
Yeah.
like, what's happening here? We're trying the same things, but I still think it's cultural. If you don't listen to women,
Yeah.
you're not empowering them, and maybe the providers can, and you have to have your husband there and they have to speak for you. And there's
Yeah.
weirdness, like where the woman doesn't feel
Oh,
confident and like she could just speak her mind,
yeah.
like, or
It's
she's
just so
afraid. And like you
heartbreaking.
might be afraid to say, well, something's wrong with my baby, because then that comes back to you being
Mm,
a bad mom. Like, I
yeah.
didn't do something right in my pregnancy, is something, so it's just the whole,
Yeah.
like, let's just listen to them. And that's why I do like the CDC's campaign for Hear
Yeah.
Her, it's called. So listen to
Yeah.
the mother, whatever she's saying, and go follow up and check, and actually check, don't
Yeah.
reassure without action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And it's totally okay to turn around to your provider who's reassuring you and maybe the kindest, most chilled out person under the sun. But it's okay to say to them, oh, can we have some evidence to back this reassurance? So, yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to share about your babies? I know we get to see them a little bit on social media, but they're both
Yeah,
so sweet. I love seeing Miller growing now. And how
thank
has it been for
you.
you?
Um, I don't think there's much else I can add to our wonderful chat. You covered so much, but yeah, Miller is just amazing. Like I look at him and yeah, I just want to encourage anyone that is thinking or amongst their grief thinking, oh, do I have another baby? Like, mum guilt can be a crazy thing and it can feel like you're doing something dishonorable, like having another one, and you're not replacing your angel or anything like that. Like you had dreams, and people in life have dreams and they have goals and they have things that they like looking forward to, even if it's a holiday. And just because you don't get to go on one holiday because of COVID or whatever doesn't mean that you're not allowed to experience them in the future. And even though we're experiencing amazing things with Miller and it's different to what it would have been with Asha, we're so grateful for it. And if anyone's thinking about taking those next steps in your life, please don't let fear hold you back. I was in tears multiple times thinking about having another baby, and we had many conversations. My partner is amazing and so supportive, and yeah, we were just like, could we possibly deal with another loss? And we were letting the fear of that at the start stop us from experiencing all this joy that parenthood can bring. And yeah, I just want to encourage anyone, please don't let fear stop you from having those little smiles or those amazing moments in your life, because life amongst grief, when you've lost someone, it can feel a bit stagnant and you can feel stuck. So getting to wake up one day to a tiny little human who is encouraging you and distracting you in ways, it is the most healing, amazing thing ever. Once they're here, that fear will just go away until your next pregnancy, but then it'll be fine again. But yeah, just don't let fear stop you from doing anything, and always speak your mind. If your gut's telling you something, please. If you're the only difference between your baby getting a check and your baby not, who cares what someone thinks of you? And yeah, overall birth and your baby coming home safely and getting to go home and be on that car ride home with you, that is more important sometimes than the way your baby gets here. At the end of the day, when our kids are in classrooms or meeting the love of their life and you're watching them grow, you're not going to look at them any differently because of the way they got brought into the world. So yeah, please sometimes just get rid of the societal pressures and just be like, in my individual situation, what is best for me? What information do I have here? And what is my gut telling me? And run with that, to let everything else just like turn the volume down on everything else and do what's right for you and your baby.
I love that. I think it reminds me of the hashtag birth is birth that I use sometimes
Yeah.
about C-section birth, because you do feel a little bit like maybe I'm not, I didn't get that perfect birth, or somehow you feel the
Yeah.
shame of like you weren't that type of mother, you weren't able to do it that
Mm,
way. And I do think it's
yeah.
important for everyone to realize that's not as important as the baby being here. And whatever
Yeah.
you did to have your baby, and whether or not they're here or not, you're still a wonderful mother to that child.
Yeah. And it's like, you got your baby here safe. You did that. Oh my gosh. Like that should be celebrated no matter how much. And like if a baby runs into a complication or whatever, it's like you know, if a mama is being there for her child, that's amazing. Full stop. Like the baby's not going to know any different.
No.
Mm,
And regardless,
yeah.
you always have your Asher as your child too. And
Yeah.
I think that's important for people to keep remembering as Miller grows,
Yeah.
you know. And I like
Yeah.
you can include him in what you do and your stories and
Yeah.
everything. But it is sad and it's not something you want anyone to live
Mm.
through.
No, and that's why saying things is so important. And that's why you even talking about Owen. And when I came across your page, I was just like, you know, people somehow survive loss, and it feels like you can't. And then one foot in front of the other, and you roll out of bed one day, and then one day it's not as hard and it's not as whatever, and you're living in their honor and their memory. And you know, it's just surreal how you can survive going through something so hard that no one ever should. And I think it's just a testament to all the mums with angel babies out there. It's like we can do hard things even if it looks messy. Yeah, it's insane. Mm.
That's why I quoted you for my caption here today. I love what you said is that you share your story in hopes that it become part of somebody else's survival guide. And I think that
Yeah.
is a huge reason why we share in social media now, because we do know other women that have still been through this and their partners as
Mm.
well. And they
Yeah.
see our story as evidence that they can live one more day, you know, and it's
Yeah.
hard and you're not alone. I just want everyone to know that if you lost a baby, we're very sorry. And, you know,
Yeah.
will not be gone. You know, we will always miss
No.
our child, but I think it will get a little bit lighter and you'll be able to keep carrying on and surviving and doing some beautiful things in their memory.
Yeah.
You know, I do so much for Owen's memory because he's not
Yeah.
here to live his own life. And
Mm. Mm. I'm sorry.
yeah, we have to live double for our children
Yeah.
sometimes.
And I think any mum that's lost an angel just feels for you and your family right now, because no one should know the beauty of loving someone so much and not have them here to physically experience that, but they know. They know. And oh my gosh, if Owen could see everything you were doing, he would be like, my mum rocks. So yeah, it's crazy.
We
It's
have to do
crazy,
it for
but
other parents too, because the thing is that the people we're doing it for are not the lost parents only. Like we're doing it, you know, to give them some hope, but then also for
yeah,
parents who are going to be parents, even our own children
yeah,
in the future. Like God forbid anyone has to go through this. So
yeah,
it's important to keep talking about it. Like I don't think people may realize it. They might see it more like a grief thing, like I can't let go or something. But
yeah,
no, actually, I just don't want anyone to live through the hell that we're in constantly.
exactly.
You know, we both have very bad PTSD and we cannot parent the same way
Mm,
you can, you know, anyone else
yeah,
who has a normal birth and
yeah,
all this stuff happening in their
yeah,
life. They don't have to worry about their children the way we do because we
yeah,
feel like we've survived one death. Like that is just really
yeah.
hard.
And I think when you know what it's like to navigate death amongst life when the line is blurred, it can make you so much more grateful for, like, sometimes I even just wake up and I take the dog for a walk and I'm like, Asher never got,
You know,
I'm like, he never even got to feel the sunshine on his skin. And I would have given anything for him to just feel that. And yeah, it's weird. You can have so much gratitude and also so many huge feelings inside you, like, why? But if you can help one person's baby go home and feel those things.
I know it's very difficult for all of us as we navigate life after loss. So, just the moral of this entire story, I think, is just remember to trust your instincts, speak up to your provider, and if they're reassuring you and you're not reassured, you have to continue to push and don't give up. You know, if you feel like you need a second opinion, that's always, you know, up for you. You do not have to continue with the same doctor, even. You can switch doctors. I recommend being continuous care if possible and making sure that they know you, making sure that, you know, you reiterate different feelings you might have had at your last appointments and that they might have forgotten about if you're still feeling some discomforts. There's a lot of things in pregnancies that we can say are just, a discomfort. Most people will tell you, oh, that's normal. That's how pregnancy is. You are at your end. So, you know, they might write it off as like a normal symptom of pregnancy, but you are in your own body. And I think you have to be able to trust yourself and realize that there are risks involved in every pregnancy, regardless if you were labeled as low risk or high risk. So you have to understand this is up to you to continue to communicate, continue to push, and try to get the care that you need. And if at the end everything was fine, you will not feel bad that you did all this anyway, because I do get a lot of stories on social media from people who say, well, I did go in over and over. I was an anxious mother. And at the end of the day, my baby was okay, but I'm okay with having done that. And even their providers will say to them, if they're a good provider, we don't care how many times you come in, as long as you need to, we'd rather you get the reassurance, and we'd rather you tell us if you feel something is wrong, rather than you coming to us, in a hysterical moment, like, oh, I haven't felt my baby for a while. There's something different here. In that case, like, they'll still say to you, come in, no matter what. So I think if they're appropriate care, this should be the advice. If you feel a change, come in every single time. And even if you came yesterday, I'll just say this last, because a lot of my lost parents, unfortunately, did have like NST prior and at their previous appointment, and everything was just fine. So I've been crying on this episode. I never usually cry, but sometimes it hits you. And I just think it's so sad, because they feel reassured. They had a test and then they came back home and they're like, well, something still feels off, but the doctor said that everything looked good. So what more would they have really done? And that's why I never blame a parent. I just try to give advice to future parents that can do, fight a little bit harder, just because I know where it can go. And, you don't realize it being the parent, but like, I'm on the other side, unfortunately, and I could tell you I'm less than a 1% chance of having a stillbirth, and it happened to me. So we do not want these things to happen to anybody else. So please listen to yourself, and make sure everything's fine, actually fine.
Yeah. Oh, I think Asha was like, Mom, you need to calm down.
No, you do such a good job of really honoring him, and just being so positive. And I think we like everything around our babies to be very positive. But for me at this point, like, sometimes I just cry and let it out, because I don't want people to think like, oh, we're just fine here. We just had more babies and we're robots,
Oh. And that's the thing, like, they're always going to be, missing from certain parts of our lives, and we love them. That's never going to stop. And grief can hit you whenever. So yeah, I guess it's good to be honest and open and vulnerable. But
everything that was today was very honest. And thank you so much, Immi. I want to let you enjoy your evening or go to bed. I don't know.
I know your little man's probably going to wake up in a few hours for a feed. Thank you so much, though. It was lovely talking to you too.
Have a good night. Bye, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.
Don't you just love Immi? I told her she must write a book or go around and speak to providers to make sure that they know how to help patients have a better birth and less trauma. Thank you so much, Immi, for sharing your story. Remember to share this episode on social media so you can help others in your circle grow their knowledge and have a better birth outcome. Remember that all the posts that we share and our episodes are not meant to be medical advice. We are simply trying to help you and inform you as you continue your pregnancy, but always remember that you should consult your provider if you have any questions or concerns. They're there to help you, and they are available to you 24/7, even if you have to go into the hospital or the ER. Again, follow us on social media to continue up to date with our next episodes and our posts. And feel free to connect with us in the DMs. If you have any questions, we would be happy to be there for you. You are not alone. This is your community, and we hope that you will continue to watch our future and past episodes to continue to add to your knowledge as we interview birth workers, providers, researchers, and even people who have experienced different births, so that when you get to your birth, you'll be a little bit more informed and prepared for whatever comes your way. Goodbye for now.